Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Q&PLAY, my monthly Q&A series where I answer your questions in a rambly, unscripted format. First question comes from Khrow. How do you better go about incorporating player backstories in with the campaign and giving personalized story hooks? Okay, this is actually very, very good. I like this question a lot because it is something that a lot of DMs want to do. A lot of popular D&D streaming shows do this to great effect. Player backstory is a major aspect in a lot of these shows in driving the narrative forward, and it works really, really well. Now, of course, you do not need to run your games like that. However, having player backstories be incorporated in the campaign is pretty much always a good idea, and I think that if you have the energy and the time to do this, and your players are interested in having a lot of roleplay and their backstories integrated, then absolutely do it, because I think it is more than worth it. With that being said, as Khrow kind of implies, it is really hard to do that. Different players are going to make different backstories, they're going to have different tones, and that may result in a messy campaign if you don't do it right. Open communication is the first step. Make sure to communicate with the player. When they're making their backstory, don't shoot everything down because that's really discouraging, especially for new players, but make sure to tell them what you think is going to work and what you don't believe is going to work as well, and refine what they have. My players don't make extensive backstories, but we do make them together, meaning I am well aware of everything that they've written, and I have tailored the campaign to fit with what they've written. Further than that, if you want ideas for where to take their backstory in the campaign, let the players drive it. Give them a minor hook, and then when the player reacts, and depending on their choices, that can give you a lot of inspiration. In my campaign, Flint Strider is a ranger pirate captain who's played by my friend Caden. And whenever a rival crime lord, like an outlaw gang leader, insults him, he makes sure to let them know that he has achieved great things with his party, with his crew. He is a respected crime lord as well. And I can see his character sort of turning into this outlaw pirate lord, and I love it. And that is probably, I hope he's not watching this, probably the direction his story is going to go if he approves of that sort of thing. I can see him and the party building up not a criminal empire, but a reputation as this respected pirate crew, and I love it. It's great. Let players drive your story. You can get a lot of ideas from them. Especially when it comes to incorporating the player's backstory. Question from Valerie Metzler. Did you have a movie that absolutely terrified you as a child, and have you ever tried to rewatch it now that you are older? Side note, that was The Dark Crystal for me. That is a great question. I love that. Honestly, when I was a kid, I didn't watch many scary movies because when I was a little kid, if I thought a movie would be scary, I didn't watch it. And I spent a lot of my childhood watching dinosaur documentaries on a VHS tape, or tapes, plural, if I recall correctly, which, is not the most terrifying experience, except if you include the cheap, VHS case, the cardboard cover of the case falling apart slowly, and watching your nostalgic dinosaur documentary VHS just slowly degrade over time, which, yeah, sad. That being said, when I was really, really young, I saw the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, and I was terrified of the cantina scene. I remember all the different aliens, some of them scarier than others, really, really scared me as a little kid. But then after, I don't even think it was a year, I think it was a few months, I got over it and I watched A New Hope and I loved it. And yeah, I play the cantina song all the time now just for funsies, so I definitely got over it, to say the least. Question from JDizzy192. How would you go about incorporating multiclassing into a backstory? 9 times out of 10, I don't. The main reason is that when I multiclass, I just see it as a further extension of the backstory I've already written. So for example, for the DMPC, I created Kalia, or the NPC companion more specifically, and perhaps in the future player character, she is, or was, a fighter, rogue, multiclass, arcane trickster, and echo knight, and I saw that as both extensions of the same source. her abilities as a rogue, sneak attack, and her fighter abilities, they came from the same source. Her training as a sword fighter, and her echo from the Echo Knight, and her magic from the Arcane Trickster subclass, they just came from the same source as well, the mark on her hand that she received from an Eldritch source. They just are extensions of the same place. Now, if you multi-class and you want to incorporate it into a backstory, that's great. I remember in Critical Role, when Vax multi-classed into Paladin, there was a reason. Same thing with Ford in the same show. When he multi-classed into Paladin, there was a reason that we saw in the game. Now, if you are writing a backstory with multiclassing and you do want to incorporate multiclassing into a major element of the character, I think that that could be really, really cool, but I don't think you need to do that. I think for patrons, like for Warlock and for Cleric, I think it's the easiest. Like, they're a fighter who also worships or serves a deity, therefore they have the Warlock or Cleric powers and what have you. I think for other places, like a bard who is also a barbarian, you might need to think outside the box a little bit more, but if you want to do that, that's absolutely great. If you don't, and you just want the multi-class to just be another aspect of their character, just something else they learned, that's also totally fine. Whatever you're good with, and whatever you're comfortable role-playing. Question from Stev the Wizard. Do you think the new books will come with new rules that will completely change 5th edition and or contradict pre-existing rules? If they do, I think that that's fine as long as the changes are good ones. Like, there are things in 5th edition I want changed, and when those changes are made, yeah, they're going to contradict previous rules. That's how changes work. But yeah, I mean, one of the main things is attack of opportunity. I want more movement in D&D. Like, there's a lot of standing still right now, and I think that D&D needs to encourage players to move more. And obviously there are things that the Dungeon Master can do, but I think that rule sets that encourage movement would be great. More pacifist options. They are pushing more pacifist adventures recently, and that's awesome, but I think that as written, a lot of D&D classes don't really cater to that sort of playstyle, so they need to change classes to fit with this new playstyle that they're introducing in more of their adventures. More player choice is good. Give players the tools to make those choices easier. Better monsters, please. Better monsters is something that I really, really want. More mechanics for monsters. That might not be a rule change, more like a rule addition, but it's definitely something I want. All in all, I think that the new D&D books for 5.5 or whatever it ends up being will change rules. Now, that's all for 5.5 and the future of D&D. Right now, we're not in the middle of 5.5. We're still just getting new books for the 5th edition that we know. And I say just, that's not meant to be degrading or anything towards the new books we're getting. A lot of them have been really good, but we are not in the middle of 5.5 yet. So we're not going to see those rule changes for a while. Like the new Monster Manual edition or whatever that's coming out, I highly, highly doubt that's going to have any rule changes, or at least any major ones that would change the game in a major, major way. It'll probably just add more monsters, and that's that. Not to say that's a bad thing. More monsters are great. Question from Ethan Morrill. What are your resolutions this year? Bonus points if you have resolutions specifically for D&D. Well, I don't do resolutions for the year. Instead, I have seasonal goals, which is an idea I got from watching CGP Grey and listening to his podcast. Essentially, I set a goal for myself each season, a theme, if you will. Like this season, we're in the middle of the winter of less, where I just set about trying to cut unnecessary work and stress from my life. Just cutting down just annoying stuff that I don't need in my life. Like, I've completely cut a lot of social media from my life, which is weird because I am working as a YouTuber. So obviously I didn't cut YouTube out, and Reddit, I read Reddit stories, but I mean, I had a Twitter and it's gone. Instagram, on my personal life, it's gone. I have cut those completely out of my life because they didn't really bring me much joy. I'm also cutting out just various tedious stuff that I forced myself to do for no particular reason other than it's habit. I've been doing it for a while, which is not a reason to do something. I'm just trying to waste less time this season. And the reason that it's a seasonal goal is because a year is just too long for me. I cannot, for the life of me, keep a goal over a year. I want to change it over the course of a season. And a season is a good amount of time. It's a good amount of time for me to set a theme for myself and try to encourage some change in my life. It's not so specific that I feel like I failed, but not so vague that I don't get anything done. Season of Less has worked out so far. I've done some good stuff. Last season, I believe we had Season of Listening, where I changed up the kind of music I listened to, and that was really successful. I got in some different songs and some new podcasts, and it was really, really awesome. It started out as Season of Audiobook, which changed because I wasn't really into a lot of the audiobooks I was listening to, so I changed it to something different, something that I felt like I could achieve, and my life is better because of it. So yeah, I totally recommend these seasonal themes. They've really, really helped me to improve my life in minor, small ways, and have been more efficient for me and effective than a yearly resolution that's so specific that I feel like I failed at every turn, or so vague that I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Question from Adam Watson. I have a friend who wants to DM a longer game for our group. The problem is that they are not a good DM by any means, and none of us want to play the game that they have pitched. It is clear that they are really excited to run the game, so the group doesn't want to upset them. Any advice about letting them know we don't want to play the game? So, that is interesting, but the first thing I would do is be completely 100% honest. If your main problem was that they weren't a good DM. I don't know what you mean by that, by the way. I have no idea what you mean by they aren't a good DM. That's incredibly vague. Like what, do they not prep or something? I don't know. But with that being said, yeah, the first thing I would do is explain to them why you don't think their DMing style is up to code. And I would phrase it very kindly. Look, the truth is just the truth. The truth is not an excuse to be a dick about it. You need to be kind when telling them that they're not doing something right. You need to be understanding, and you need to have an open discussion about it. Explain to them the problems they have with their style, because if they're enthusiastic, then, I mean, they clearly would want to improve, at least from my perspective. If they don't want to improve, and they take your criticism with hostility, then that's a whole different problem entirely. But if they don't, then maybe you can work together to improve their game and maybe refine their pitch so it's something the group is interested in. I understand the DM is in a leader position, but the players are also playing the game. You should all be interested in the game that you are playing together. So yeah, I hope that helps you solve that problem. Communication. Always. Communication is key. And that is where we are going to end today's episode of Q&Play. If you guys enjoyed it, then please do leave a like to let me know. If you want to see more of my content, then please do subscribe to Crispy's Tavern. I am always making more videos, 3 a week. We also have a series of RPG horror stories if you haven't already seen that. And finally, if you want to leave your own thoughts or questions, go down to the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment Lost Legacy to reference the game I'm playing in the background and to let me know you made it to the end of the video. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.